Hello, everybody. I want to start this session, which is all about how you may use vertical video, and especially TikTok, for your journalism. But before I begin, and before I introduce myself, I have a question for everybody here. Please raise your hand if you have a TikTok account that you just sometimes look at stuff on. Great. Keep your hands up. Keep those hands raised. Keep your hand up if you also create content on TikTok. Okay. Those numbers don't surprise me, and it's why I am making this keynote for the first time. I've been on TikTok now for nearly 4 years, and I'm here to hopefully try and change the dial on where the conversation is going with how journalists use vertical video. We know that news outlets are on there. About 49% of the world's major news outlets, news brands are on TikTok, according to the Reuters Institute of Journalism. But where are the journalists? Where are the individual accounts of us, like we have on Twitter, like we have on LinkedIn, where we are there building communities around our reporting? Who am I, and why do I think that's important? So, my name is Sophia Smith-Gaylor. I have been a reporter at the BBC World Service. I've also been a senior news reporter at Vice News. Both of those roles involved as much video journalism as they did original and enterprise reporting and storytelling, always on lots of different platforms, not just one or two. And I'm now freelance. I've actually only been freelance for about a week, so it's all quite new to me. And thank you. And in that time, I have managed to amass over 500,000 followers on TikTok, a bunch of tens of thousands of followers on the other social media platforms too, and I have had more than 140 million views on my TikTok. I'm known for doing what's called the explainer format. You'll see a few examples of this later in the panel that we're holding. But in the explainer, it sounds like what it is. You say something to hook the audience in. It might be a question, it might be a statement. Often it's connected to my news reporting or my passions. I introduce the audience to the concept, and then I explain it for about a minute. And maybe I also give them insight into how I found the story, or why I've chosen this story, why I've decided to make a video about it today. This, again, is from the digital news report from the Reuters Institute of Journalism, which for me is, I imagine for many of you, it's like the digital Bible. I go to it for lots of my journalism questions. And this is a graph that Nick Newman put on here about different TikTok strategies for publishers. Again, remember the title of my keynote. News outlets, news publishers are on TikTok, but where are the journalists? Where are the individual reporters? As you can see, between different news publishers, there are different techniques. There is no one-size-fits-all when it comes to finding a home for news on TikTok. Certainly in the market that I come from, I do international news reporting, but I'm a British journalist, and in my industry, in my context, TikTok is the fastest growing source of news for adults, and people are engaging with it more and more across demographics. You know, for a very long time now, it's not just been the tool, the platform for really young people. And as you can see, there are a bunch of different ways that news publishers are making content. Some of them are very brand-led. It might be broadcasters looking to reuse existing video news assets. They're not making anything bespoke for their social platforms. They're reversioning what they've already created for television, for example, or for radio. We have socially native and upmarket news brands, where my previous employer, Vice News, is probably sat. Strong creator influence, content mostly bespoke and distinctive. At Vice News, I would be filming content that would only go on TikTok. And while I was there, I helped pioneer the TikTok-first news deployment, which is now done across the newsroom. And then this is what I want to talk about here. Creator-led. Think about how TikTok and these platforms are dominated by creators, full stop. You think, okay, creator-led, where does the newsroom fit in with this creator bit? And you see correspondence Mostly quick takes on the news, some trying a lighter and more playful tone. Sometimes you'll see there'll be correspondents showing you the behind the scenes of TV. Sometimes you'll find it will be correspondents very briefly introducing you to a news topic that everyone else is covering, but because they're a correspondent, you trust them to tell you. So I'm thinking on-diary news stories, things that are happening around the world that all of the newsrooms are trying to cover in their own way. I think this graph was missing something. This graph was missing what I think newsrooms could be doing a lot more to encourage and support their journalists to be, which are individual journalist creators, just in the way that we have been building communities around our reporting on Twitter for a really long time. We should be doing the same on the platforms that are becoming the most important places for young people to get their news, their information, and their entertainment. I would say that in order to succeed as a journalist creator, and you're going to be hearing from 3 journalist creators today, it's got to be personality and niche-driven. It's got to be platform-first with content that hovers between lots of different spaces. It's got to be informative, but it's also got to be engaging. It's got to really emulate what creators are doing on the platform rather than trying to reversion what your broadcaster has already done. It probably demands some level of video content expertise from your journalist. Has your newsroom enabled and encouraged and trained your reporters to do that? I wanted to show you some of my insights from my TikTok account. Before I go into this, I also wanted to say that the principles I've learned from TikTok have led to my growth and innovation on other platforms. So since the end of June, my Instagram account's grown by 30%. Very unusual in terms of the general growth of my account, and I think this has happened because Reels more and more is amplifying distinctive content in the style of TikTok. YouTube Shorts, lots of creators are seeing growth on there as well, and it's because we've spent all this time figuring out how to make high-quality short-form storytelling on TikTok that as soon as these other platforms want to sort of parrot what TikTok does, our videos do well on there. But just to show you, I'm reaching about 59% of my audience is female, very international audience. I haven't got it on here, but my top audiences are the UK, then the US, Egypt, Saudi Arabia, and Canada, I believe, on TikTok. Video views, that's in the last 60 days, 4.8 million views, and I've had 45,000 views as well on my profile. You can see my audience there is mainly my age. I'm in the 25 to 34 age bracket, but a number of my videos overperform with that top, the 18 to 24-year-olds. This is what I think the anatomy of a journalist creator account involves, that you'll see some examples of in a minute. But I think the recipe to doing so involves hitting the For You page frequently, probably making enough content to do that, returning to and innovating niches in which you develop over time, familiarity and appearance in the comments. Are you engaging with your followers regularly, or are you sort of keeping this distant, patrician, old-school broadcaster attitude? It's got to be original content. It has to be different from mainstream media and the kind of content that every single other newsroom is trying to make right now. I think we have reached peak news explainer. Lots of audiences are demanding further differentiation and specialization of storytelling. You've also got to differ from creators despite emulating them, because ultimately, as a journalist, we're held, to different standards, and rightly so. But you've got to maintain the principles of each. It's got to be vertical first. Stop reversioning stuff. Start filming stuff for TikTok first, or for Instagram Reels first, or for YouTube first. I definitely think I benefited in the growth of my account by my proximity to mainstream media. Audiences are skeptical. They want to know who to trust. It was great that I could say to them, hey, I am a senior news reporter at Vice News, or hey, I'm a reporter at the BBC. However, I've also massively benefited from my distance from those platforms, the scrutiny and the criticism that they constantly get on TikTok. Being able to be my own journalistic product's been very helpful for my career. If you want to get in touch with me, this is how you do so. This is how you follow me on Instagram, and if you want to email me,